in my experience, if I am alone in early sobriety, it's not long before I convince myself that it's okay, or that this time it will be different.
Me plus alone time, first thought, use.
Yeah. Yep.
And it's not necessarily meth anymore. Like it's more like what you said. I'm going to be alone. Let's fucking go out and eat. I'm going to be alone. Let's go spend some money. I'm going to be alone. Let's go find a prostitute, like, and it's not somewhere I live anymore. And I heard Jordan Peterson say this on something I watched the other day. It was great. I loved what he said. He said, the purpose behind us thinking is so that our thoughts can die instead of us. And I thought, wow.
Yeah.
Right?
I like that.
Like, okay. So I have the thought of going out and misbehaving as a married man. Okay, that's okay. It's normal. I know that because I've talked to a bunch of other people. Do I need to act on that? Yes or no? What are the pros and cons of that behavior? How is that going to make my life any better? Will doing that bring me any closer to my goals? Will that make my relationships that I have more impactful or more meaningful? And when I go down that road of questioning those things, those are all done inside of my head. And it wasn't like that early on. It's like that now. Mm-hmm. And so I don't, so now me being in my own head isn't necessarily a dangerous place. It's a good spot for me to kind of analyze my life and what I really want. It's okay for me to go in and think about using or drinking or cheating or lying or whatever, because thinking about it is not doing it. And in early sobriety, I thought this shit would go away. And I heard people telling me that, at 30, 40 years, they still think about getting drunk. And I'm like, fucking seriously? Like, you're still thinking about it? And I understand what they're saying. It's not a consideration, right? It's not like I'm seriously considering a drink. It's a tempting thought that pops up in my head, that I don't have to act out on. It's there.
Yeah.
I've come to accept that it's there, and that there's this part of me that believes now that it will always be there. So, yeah, that.
Yeah. Well, and I remember thinking too in early sobriety, like really being thrown by the idea that I would constantly go back to thinking about it, right? Like you said, anytime that I'm alone, like that's where my thought goes, or anytime that I'm aware of a time where I will be alone, or anytime that an opportunity really is presented where it's like, okay, I could totally do this. Like, that the thought pops up.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking in early sobriety, like, am I always going to have to navigate this first idea? Like, is this always going to be my first thought to use? And like, the further and further I get, like in sobriety, the more that, I'm not going to say the thought goes away, but what I will say is that it's not something I seriously consider.
Right? And it's short-lived. Right?
Yeah, exactly. Like, it's not anything that I'm ever like, oh yeah, I totally could do that. Like, yeah, let's maybe, okay. So if I go now to the liquor store, you know what I mean? And start planning it out. But yes, it is, every once in a while, it is still a thing. Or it comes out in other ways, right? Where it's like, I do think about like food or sex or, some sort of gratifying behavior that is negative that I will regret later, and so the good part of that to me is, what I like knowing is that back in the day, I used to do this with alcohol, right? I used to always think about, okay, well, and drugs too. I'll say pain pills for me was a big thing. So the minute that I'm presented with like an opportunity to be alone, I'll have that thought, oh man, it might be nice to, get a pint and grab a couple pills. And then I would navigate around that and say, yeah, but but also I'm feeling pretty good right now. I'm doing this really good thing. And like, that's a real surefire way for me to fuck up how good things are right now.
Yeah.
Right. And then, like I said, as more and more time progressed, I wouldn't actually consider acting on that notion. what that means for me is that now when it happens with food or it happens with pornography or it happens with any of those things that I might be dealing with now, it means that the more I navigate it and the more I get through it and past it, the better at it I will get.
Right.
And it will no longer be a serious consideration